Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Today we are in my kitchen because I am going to be making Avery's second birthday cake. I was going to include this footage in a vlog, but then I thought, why not make its own entire video? I love to bake. If you guys have been watching my channel, then you know that one of my New Year's resolutions or my goals for 2023 was to bake a cake for everyone in my immediate family's birthday this year. And Avery's is the second of the year. I'm really excited about this cake because, as you guys know, our family is quite boy dominant, so it's nice to make a girly cake every now and again. I just thought it would be a little bit of fun to kind of switch up my videos a little bit, and I like to experiment with different topics every now and again. Now, don't worry guys, I am not changing my niche, if you will. We are still very much a family lifestyle vlog type channel. We share our life and how we've adapted to our children with additional and complex medical needs. But Avery is my daughter. She is turning 2, like I said. She has cerebral palsy, and on Saturday we are celebrating her birthday with a party. Her birthday's not actually till Monday, but we're having a little family gathering on Saturday to celebrate, so that is what I'm making the cake for. So I just thought it'd be fun to make it with you on camera and show you what I do and how I make it. I do want to preface here though guys, I'm a complete novice baker. I am not a professional in any way. All of the things that I've learned off of YouTube actually. I'd probably say I learn everything I know between a mixture of 2 channels, and that is George's Cakes and Cupcake Gemma. I definitely suggest checking them out if you're interested in getting into baking cakes and decorating really nice cakes, because they both explain things really well, and I feel like my skills definitely got so much better after I did some watching them make their cakes, and definitely over lockdown I had a lot more time to practice. So please excuse the lighting in this video guys. This kitchen is definitely not set up to do kind of cooking or baking type videos, so I'm just trying to work with the space I have. I mean, even this is quite backlit, so apologies for that. So this is my inspiration for Avery's cake. I just found the image on Google. I just searched girly birthday cakes, and I also really like drip cakes, so I knew I definitely wanted to use a drip on this cake. But then what I did after that is I actually went into my digital notebook, which I do sell on Etsy by the way, and I basically designed my own version. And obviously I've not kind of drawn the piping on the top because that would have been a bit difficult, but I've designed my own version, and then I sort of mapped out exactly what I was going to need. I'm also going to be using the cake topper that I used for Avery's first birthday, so I think that would be really nice repurposing that. So I've got all of my ingredients in front of me here. I've got 500 grams of caster sugar, 500 grams of unsalted butter. I have 6 eggs, but these are extra large eggs. So normally I would have used 8 eggs in this recipe, which would have been around 400-ish grams. But I'm using 6 eggs because that equated to 400 grams because they are extra large. And then I am making a chocolate cake. So I've got 450 grams of self-raising flour and 50 grams of cocoa powder, and I've already sifted that into this bowl. I do find that kind of measuring out all of my ingredients, even though it makes more washing up, it does save a little bit of time through the actual baking process, which I think is the kind of most stressful part. The recipe is actually one I use from George's Cakes. I've always used that recipe just because I find it the most simple to follow, and it's really easy to duplicate if you want to make bigger cakes. So I'm making an 8-inch cake, but it's going to be a 4-layer cake. And I am also using my stand mixer again because it's easier than mixing by hand, and I find you can really cream the butter and the sugar much better. Now I did have to melt this in the microwave and then let it set again just because it is too cold in this house. I did leave the butter out overnight because you want the butter to be soft. I did leave it out overnight, but it's just too cold in this house. It didn't soften at all. So I put it in the microwave, and now it has kind of set up a little bit. So it is still soft, but it's not melted. One of you guys actually told me the difference between using melted and softened butter in your cakes, and turns out A melted butter cake will make a denser cake, and a softened butter cake will make more of a light and fluffy cake. So I'm using softened butter, and like I said, this is 500 grams, and I am just gonna stick the lot in my stand mixer. I do want to talk for a second though about how expensive everything has gone up. The ingredients, I've noticed, were so much more expensive to buy. I think it definitely used to be cheaper to buy a to make a birthday cake over buying one. It's definitely cheaper now just to buy a birthday cake, but I like the thought of making my children's birthday cakes. They're made with love, I can design them, I can make them pretty or make them themed into whatever they like, and I can let them choose their flavour as well, which is nice. Avery obviously can't choose her flavour, but Josh, my husband, actually requested chocolate because he is not a big fan of vanilla cake. Now Avery is 100% G-tube fed, so she's not going to be having a slice of cake, but I think what I am going to do is blend some of the cake with the icing and everything and just let her have a taste of it. I think it would be wrong for her not to be able to taste her own birthday cake, so I am quite looking forward to doing that. I don't think she did taste her birthday cake last year. She was quite overwhelmed. It was her birthday and her christening, so there was a lot of people, a lot going on, but this year I definitely want her to taste her birthday cake. So all of the butter is in the mixer, and now I am just going to pop the caster sugar in as well. And now I'm just going to put this on a high speed until it's light and fluffy. You'll know when it's done because it will kind of change colour, so it will go really pale. I do have to kind of scoop around the edges and the bottom every so often just to make sure it's all getting incorporated, but mostly what you're looking for is a pale and fluffy consistency. So this is kind of what I mean here. The center and what is on the whisk there, you can see is that nice pale color, but the outside is still quite buttery. So I need to give that a good mix together and make sure all of the butter and the sugar is kind of in the center so that it can all get mixed together properly. So I'm just going to slide down what is at the sides, make sure it's all in the middle. Oops, this happens all the time. This kind of stops things from splatting up. Honestly, it's just more of a nuisance because it keeps popping off. But yeah, getting it all in, make sure you get the bottom as well. I say make sure you get the bottom. That is if you follow this video, but just remember, I'm not a professional, but I have learned everything I know from professionals' videos. So take that as you will. Also, don't mind my phone here. I am also trying to make like a short or an Instagram reel or something out of making this cake too. So I am well and truly multitasking today. And now I'm going to give it another mix. Okay, and I think that's done. And that there is what you're looking for. That really nice, pale, fluffy consistency. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm gonna add the eggs, and I'm just gonna plop all of the eggs in and then give this another good mix on high speed. As you probably saw, the eggs are curdling. That is fine. Stupid thing, I'm gonna take it off in a minute. That is fine. Usually by the time you add the dry ingredients, the mixture all kind of comes together, but I am just giving this another kind of mix just to make sure it's all getting mixed together, because there's some big blobs of egg yolk that we're getting caught on the side. I'm not sure if that's just my stand mixer that does this. I feel like my stand mixer doesn't quite catch the sides very well, but I think you should always mix it around anyway just to make sure there's nothing sticking to the bottom or anything. That is, you know, assuming that you'll be using a stand mixer. You can always do this by hand. I just find it easier to use the mixer. Okay, that is all mixed in. So now I'm gonna add the dry ingredients, and I think what I'm gonna do, because I do have quite a hefty amount of flour and cocoa powder, I'm gonna mix this in by hand just so I can do it gradually, just so it doesn't go everywhere. Probably better to mix the flour in by hand anyway, because you don't want to overwork the flour because of the gluten. I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way. So I'm just gonna give the flour and the cocoa powder a bit of a mix through, just so that it all incorporates into the cake nicely. And like I said, I'm just gonna add this in 2 stages, I think, and fold it in. And I can already tell this is gonna be a really fluffy cake because the texture of the kind of butter and sugar and eggs is almost moussey. So that's all mixed in together. I'm not sure how well you can actually see that. Wants to focus on the background, but it is quite a thick cake batter texture, but it's fine. It will all kind of melt out in the oven. It's quite cold in here, so I imagine that butter's probably set even more. Now I'm going to pop this into my cake tins. So I only have 3 cake tins that are 8-inch, so I'm working with what I have. I'm not about to go out and buy more cake tins. So I have 2 of these thinner cake tins, and then I have 1 bigger one. So what I'm gonna do is put half into the bigger one and then quarters into the smaller ones, and then the bigger one I will just have to bake for a bit longer. I am gonna put them in on a bit of a lower temperature. I have a fan assisted oven, so mine's going on 165 degrees. And I'm just gonna keep checking them. The smaller cakes I will start checking after 20 minutes, and the bigger cake will probably take a lot longer. I am gonna weigh what I'm putting in them just to give me a rough guide, because obviously I'm trying to put half in one and a quarter of it in the other 2. My goodness, this bowl is heavy. It's not the easiest to get out because it's so thick. Okay, so there's 924 in that one, so I'm gonna leave it there for a minute. 950 would be half, but obviously I need to take into consideration I don't know what you would call it, wastage, I suppose. Stuff that gets stuck to the spoon, stuff that, you know, I didn't get out of the bowls properly when I was putting the ingredients in. And now for the smaller tins. So I've got all 3 measured out pretty evenly, actually. I was quite impressed. I obviously don't want to leave them like this, so I am just going to move the batter around a little bit and flatten them out as much as I can, just so that they start to bake evenly. Once they're in the oven, the batter will kind of melt before it bakes, so it will spread out naturally somewhat. So those are my cake layers, and I can tell that they're going to be really nice and fluffy just by how airy they are. Now you can probably see there is the odd little dollop of butter still in them, which isn't ideal, but there's no way I'm getting all this out to mix it back up again. So these are going to go in the oven now. Multitasking. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't let my son lick the spoon? Good? Mm-hmm. Chocolatey? Mm-hmm. I think my smaller 2 cakes are probably ready to come out now. So, grab a tea towel. Again, I'm also trying to multitask and film for Instagram too. Okay, the big cake is looking good as well. Let's have a look at these. So they're all baked, they're all cooked properly, and they are cool enough now where I can handle them with my hands. So I'm gonna tip them all out onto a cooling tray, and they should all stay nice and intact because of the baking paper. I'm happy with those. What I'm going to do now is wrap these in cling film and just leave them till tomorrow. I am going to fill and decorate them tomorrow. Number one, because it means that they will definitely be 100% cool, and number two, if they've been left to sit for a day, they're easier to cut. They don't kind of fall apart and go as crummy. So I'm gonna let them cool completely and then wrap them in cling film. Good morning, guys. It is the next day. Please excuse the state of my kitchen today. We are in full party prepping mode. My husband has taken my daughter out to the park so that I can just crack on with things I need to do. Also, please excuse the fact that I'm in a dressing gown. It is very cold today and cost of living. We're just trying not to put the heating on if we really don't need to. Luckily, Avery runs very warm, so she doesn't get cold very easily, but I do, I get very cold. So I'm wearing my dressing gown. I am fully clothed underneath. I did get dressed today. I'm just keeping my dressing gown on to keep me warm, and then I've also got my lovely Christmas apron on so that it doesn't get ruined. But anyway, we're cracking on with cake. I'm about to start making the buttercream, and I'm making a Swiss meringue buttercream. I just think it's so much better than kind of the American style frosting. It could just be personal preference, but honestly, if you have never tried a cake with Swiss meringue buttercream over the standard American frosting, please try it, because it's just so much lighter, and even though it still takes a lot of sugar, it's just much less kind of sweet. It just tastes really creamy. The best way I can describe it is it kind of tastes like a really rich vanilla ice cream, but it isn't the simplest buttercream to make, I'm not gonna lie. So I have got 200 grams of egg whites in this bowl, and I'm gonna add 400 grams of caster sugar. I've only got a little bit left in this pot, but luckily I do have a fresh bag. And I'm just gonna give this a little mix, not much, just to kind of incorporate it and make sure all the sugar is coated with the egg white. So that is what it is looking like there. And I've got a pot of water on the stove simmering behind me, and I am just going to take my egg whites and sugar and pop that on top of the pan, kind of like a bain-marie. So I'm just going to keep mixing this, and I'm going to keep this on here until all the sugar is dissolved. And ideally you want to get the egg whites to 63 degrees, I believe. I think that is the temperature to where the eggs become safe. My thermometer ran out of batteries, so I am gonna just kind of not estimate, but according to George's Cakes, the way you can tell if your eggs are at the right temperature is if you dip your fingers in and it kind of feels like hot bath water, not to the point where you would burn yourself, but kind of you put your fingers in the bath and the bath's a little bit hot. That is the temperature I'm trying to get it up to. So this has been sitting on now for a few minutes, and when I touch it, it's hot to the touch but not burning, and I can feel that all of the sugar has dissolved. So this is pretty much ready now. So now I'm just gonna pop this into the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm gonna put this on high speed until I have meringue. So that is all mixed. You can see by the meringue, it's sticking to the whisk basically, and as I pull it up, it's not so easy for you to see there. As I pull it up, you can kind of see that the string between the bowl and the meringue, it's kind of forming a peak. So that's how you know your meringue is done, is when it forms peaks. Some recipes need soft peaks, some recipes need firm peaks. Now this needs to completely cool before the next stage, so the best way I've found for that is to literally take it off the mixer and go and put it into a cold room, which isn't difficult in this house because every room is cold, so it shouldn't take long for this to come to room temperature. Some people like to kind of continue mixing it until it cools down. I found that because of the heat that the actual mixer gives off, it doesn't really help that much. So I'm just gonna go and pop this into a cold room, and then I can finish it off. So this is cooled to room temperature now, and that's literally given me just enough time to do my dishes. So here I've got 400 grams of butter. So for Swiss meringue buttercream, it's equal parts sugar and butter, and then half the amount of egg whites. And I've once again had to do the melt and cool method because this house is just too cold at the moment to melt the butter or soften it. So again, this is softened butter. It's not melted, it has really firmed up. And now I'm gonna add the butter kind of bit by bit as this goes around on a slow speed. And at first it might kind of go quite soupy. I find that is what happens with mine. It will start to look like it's kind of all melted and it's gone all soupy, but honestly, trust the process. Keep adding the butter and it will start to turn into buttercream, and it's quite cool to watch it really because it changes really quickly. So I'm just gonna grab a spoon, turn this on to a low speed and just start adding the butter. So I've added all of my butter and now I'm just going to turn it up to high speed until it starts to form into a buttercream. This looks done to me. It's a nice kind of moussey texture, just making sure all of the butter has mixed in, and it looks like it has. That is the consistency of the buttercream. It's nice and thick, so it's really nice for icing cakes. I am gonna fill the cake and do the crumb coat in a chocolate flavoured buttercream. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put half of this into another bowl. I might need more than this. This is how much I would usually make if I was making a 6-inch cake. So yeah, I may need more, but that is fine because I can just make some more. But I'm gonna start with about that amount. That's probably about half. I'm gonna use dark chocolate. This is Bourneville. A lot of bakers will say you should use really good quality high cocoa chocolate, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't like the taste. I think it can be quite bitter. I mean, dark chocolate in general is quite bitter, but it does kind of soften when you mix it in with the buttercream. So Bourneville for me is fine. I've used really cheap chocolate before and it's always come out really nice. So I'm just gonna break this up as much as I can and then I'm gonna melt it in the microwave. I'm gonna let that chocolate cool just a little bit before I put it in the buttercream, and while that's cooling I'm gonna start preparing the cakes. So I'm gonna start with the bigger one because there's a little bit more that I need to do to this one. So I'm just gonna take it out of its cling film. And I am just using a serrated knife or a bread knife. And the first thing I'm actually gonna do, I think, is take care of the bottom because the bottom did have that little bit of burnt. And I'm literally barely going beyond the cake really. I am just trying to get that burnt bottom off, and I'm just going round in circles, kind of scoring. I'm not even really needing to worry about kind of keeping it level here because I am only taking off the very surface, and I'm just keeping the knife flat against the cake, and that's essentially doing the work for me. And there we go, all that burnt bottom is gone, and that will make for a much tastier cake. I am just gonna get rid of some of these crumbs. I'm gonna start by cutting the top off, and because this cake isn't really that tall in comparison to these two, it is still quite a bit shorter, so I'm not gonna cut too much of the top off. I do want it to be level, so I think I'm gonna go about here, and I'm keeping my knife nice and straight, and all I'm doing is marking around the edge. And you'll know if your knife has been straight because when you get back to where you started, the line will meet. And yeah, that's pretty much straight. So now I'm just gonna keep doing that, but I'm gonna bring the knife more and more in as I go, and eventually I will get to the middle and the top will just come off. Now I'm gonna cut this cake in half because I want this to be 2 layers. So I need to figure out where halfway is. I'm never usually good at this. I'm gonna go for about there, and again, same thing. I'm gonna keep the knife straight and score the edge, and then when I get back to the middle, hopefully the line will meet. And then again, I'm just gonna start cutting into the cake. And then once again, there we go. And I'm essentially just gonna do exactly the same with these cakes, except I'm not gonna cut these ones in half. I'm just gonna take the tops off. So now I've got 4 fairly even cake layers, but the bigger cake, like the bottom, the edges are a little bit more charred than I would like, but that's okay because that bigger tin was actually slightly bigger in diameter as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use one of the smaller cakes as a guide and just trim around the edges. For this, I am just gonna use a steak knife just because it is a smaller serrated knife. And I'm literally just going to use the cake at the top as a guide and cut off the edges of the cake, and then all the cakes will be the same size, which will make for a nice straight cake. And there we are. No more burnt edges. And now I'm just gonna do the same with the other cake, and then we will get to stacking them. So my chocolate has cooled down a little bit now, so I am just gonna add that to my buttercream. And flavouring buttercream, Swiss meringue buttercream, is as simple as that. If you want to make white chocolate flavour, you just put white chocolate in it, salted caramel, strawberry. Saying that, I'm not sure how you would do strawberry, I'm not gonna lie, because I don't think I'd want strawberry chunks in my buttercream. Probably like a strawberry essence maybe. So I'm just going to put all of that chocolate into the buttercream. And I think I used about half of the bar. So to stack the cake, I've got my turntable and I've got my cake board, which is an acrylic disc that I've had for ages. This has seen many, many cakes. And I've just got a piece of wet kitchen towel underneath it, just to stop it from sliding around. And I'm gonna start with one of the bottoms, basically, for the bottom. So I'll have a bottom for the top and a bottom for the bottom. I am just going to pop a little bit of buttercream on the base, just so that it sticks to it. And then between each cake layer, I'm just gonna pop some sugar syrup on it, and this is just equal parts boiling water and sugar until the sugar's dissolved. And then I've added a little bit of vanilla extract, and just gonna soak the cake with this. And this is just keep the cake moist, basically, because obviously I baked them yesterday and it's not going to get cut until tomorrow, so it just helps keep the cake nice and moist on the inside. And then I am just going to dollop some of the buttercream into the cake and spread it around, and basically all I'm doing is spreading it as I'm turning the turntable, and that essentially does all the work for me. I do want to make these layers quite thick, so I'm going to pop a bit more on. I'm just spreading it out until it looks nice and flat. And then the next layer goes on, and I'm just gonna make sure each layer is nice and straight. What I did forget to do on that cake layer was put the sugar syrup on, but hey ho, there's not a lot I can do about it now. I will remember put it on this cake layer. Again, just making it even, and let's do it now before I forget. Hopefully, since it's only 1 out of the 4, you won't be able to tell that that particular layer is a little bit drier. Now we're gonna crumb coat, and I'm gonna crumb coat with as much of the excess around the cake as I can, because I'm out of the chocolate flavour now, but I'm not bothered about that because I don't really care if I have to mix for the crumb coat, because I essentially just wanted the filling to be the chocolate flavour. The outer layer of the cake is going to be plain anyway. So I'm just gonna take what is around the edge of the cake and I'm gonna start crumb coating. Okay, and it's definitely not going to be enough, so what I'm going to do is just grab a bit more of my buttercream, not too much, just a little blob at a time, Give it a quick mix in this bowl. I find that mixing it after it's all been whisked just helps get rid of some of the air bubbles and just makes it smoother basically. And this will mix in with a little bit of the chocolate buttercream, but I really don't mind. This is only the crumb coat. I'm just gonna dollop a bit on the top, spread it around the top. I don't want this to be a thick layer. I don't want to waste the icing on a crumb coat. This really is just a crumb coat and it only needs to be thin. Now that it's all kind of filled in, I'm just gonna use my cake scraper and go all the way around it, just so I know it's all nice and straight, and that also picks up any excess buttercream that I don't need. I forgot to mention, by the way, what I was using before. This is a stepped palette knife. Honestly, this has been one of the best tools that I bought when I started making cakes, just because I find it so easy to kind of spread the frosting on. Now this doesn't need to be too perfect, but I do like to make sure that my crumb coat is nice and straight and all the holes are filled in, just because it makes it much easier to do the top layer. Sorry, I kind of feel like I'm talking to myself through all of this, and I'm sorry. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because I feel like when you watch a professional baker on YouTube especially, it all looks so easy. So I'm trying to film the entire process just so that you can kind of see what it looks like realistically if you try and give it a go yourself with no baking experience. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the sides on that now. What I'm going to do now is just flatten out the corners. So I'm happy with that now, so I'm just going to pop this in the fridge until it's nice and firm and we can go on top of it with more icing without disturbing that layer. So the cake's been in the fridge for about half an hour and it's nice and firm. So now I'm literally just gonna go on top of that with some plain white buttercream and do the top layer. I'm not too fussed about the actual top itself because I am gonna be adding a drip to this cake. I just want it nice and smooth. So that is the outer layer finished. Troubleshooting this cake, I'm not gonna lie, the temperature has really been working against me today. It was so difficult to try and get this buttercream smooth because it was setting up before I even had a chance to smooth it out. Also, again, I'm assuming because of the temperature, the butter didn't completely, like you can see just here, the butter hasn't completely mixed in with that buttercream. So I do have the odd butter spot, which again is not ideal, but it is what it is. Every cake has a back, so I'm just gonna pick the prettiest part. I think that part. Again, not too worried about the top, not worried about getting that too smooth because I am gonna be adding a drip. I don't even think I need to put this in the fridge before I add the drip because it's just so cold in here. So I wanna do a pink drip, and to do that, I'm gonna use candy melts. I have never used candy melts before, so I am a little bit nervous. I ended up buying 2 bags, one pink and one white, just so that I can kind of make a lighter shade of pink. So I'm really not sure how much I'm gonna need here, so I think I'm just gonna do half and half for now. So hopefully that there should be enough. I'm just gonna microwave this and keep checking on it every 30 seconds or so. So I've got a little guest with me at the moment because Josh has gone out to the shop to pick something up and she was not happy. These candy melts, oh my goodness, they were really difficult to figure out. So I ended up having to mix oil with them to actually get them to melt enough to use as a drip. Kind of wish I'd just gone with melted chocolate because I'm not gonna lie, I don't love the taste either. It's a very oh dear. It's a very synthetic sweet vanilla taste.
Don't really love it, but we're going to use it anyway. The second time round I did end up just using the pink ones. I found the colour didn't really look that much different. So I'm going to use a piping bag to do my drips. You are just not very happy, are you, at the moment? I think this little one is tired. This is all for you though, what I'm doing. Yeah, and I'm just going to pour all of that into here. Now I've got no idea how this is going to set. I really am going in blind now and I'm kind of regretting my decision. Oh no, and as you can probably tell, stress levels have gone up a notch trying to keep this little madam happy as well. Josh is back, so he has taken little madam. I'm gonna attempt to put these drips on this cake. I am nervous that I'm about to ruin it, but gonna give it a go. Okay, I'm gonna start with small drips just because I don't know how this is gonna set. Okay, I'm quite happy with the drips. Now I am literally just gonna pour the rest, well not the rest, but some of it on top and spread it out with my palette knife. I've hit another problem. So as I was spreading it out on the top, it started to set and then this happened. So I'm gonna try and salvage it. I've got a bowl of boiling water and I am gonna try and dip my palette knife into the boiling water just to heat it up and then hope that the heat will help smooth it out. So I'm gonna take my knife out the water, dry it off and try and smooth it out. Oh, it looks like it could work. It could work, but I think it's gonna take me a bit of time. I'm starting to regret so many decisions. Still not perfect, but definitely much better than it was. I'm okay with that. Now I just need to pipe some decorations on the top and add some sprinkles on the side. I'm so over this cake now. I just want it to be done. And it's finished. I think all in all, I'm happy with it. I've definitely made better cakes, but trying out new methods and new products on a cake that's actually for something maybe isn't the best idea. But overall, I'm happy with it. This is the cake topper that I'm using, so that will go right in the center, but I'm not gonna put that on today because it won't fit in the fridge. So, final product. I am going to close this video off here, but if I do get any footage of bringing the cake out to Avery or kind of inside the cake, anything like that, then I will include it at the end of the video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we are not a baking channel. We are a family and lifestyle vlog channel. So if you would like to follow us along on our journey, then you know what to do. And with that said, I will see you all in a few days with another video. Bye guys.
Happy birthday to Avery. Happy birthday to you. Yay!